In this video, I explain why front-end programmers love classes as opposed to functions. I have designed two exercise questions for you so that you can understand the difference between the two for the front-end programmers firsthand. So in the first uh, exercise 7, you are given a file called mdlfraction.py, and this file has three functions. The first function, simplify, will get the numerator and denominator, and will simplify the fraction by calculating the GCD and dividing numerator and denominator by GCD and then return it. GCD stands for greatest common denominator. The next function is add, where you are given two fractions, a and b. A1 stands for the numerator of a, and a2 stands for the denominator of the fraction a. So two fractions are given, four arguments in reality are given. You need to return the summation of the two fractions. And the third function getString will get a fraction a, the numerator and denominator of the fraction, and it returns, this two numbers in a string format separated by a forward slash. So your goal is to write a program where the user provides three fractions, and you need to print the sum of the three fractions. So pause here for a minute and try to answer this question. So here's the answer. After getting the inputs from the user, you use the add function to calculate the summation of the fraction a and fraction b and store it in fraction d. D1 stands for the numerator of the fraction d, and D2 stands for the denominator of the fraction d. And then you add d to c and store it in the fraction e. And afterwards, you use the method, the function getString, to print the summation of all the three fractions, the end result in the format that is expected from you. Now I would like you to write a program that does the same thing, but it uses the class advanced fraction rather than the functions that you had in the previous exercise. The advanced fraction class has two attributes, a numerator and denominator. It has $str, which returns, the string version of that fraction. It has the special method $add, which returns the summation of two fractions. It also has a method called simplify that simplifies the fraction. We learned about this in the previous video. Now you need to fill the blanks in this code in a way that it calculates the summation of the three fractions. So after getting the inputs, A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2, you use them to create three instances of the class advanced fraction. You call them A, capital B, capital C, and then you simply use the plus operand operator to calculate the sum of the three fractions and store it in capital E. And then you just need to use the str function to calculate the string, to return the string format of the class and print it. When you compare the two codes that were written by the front-end programmer using function and using the class, you can easily see that both codes hide the complexity of the fraction operation, but the class makes a way better job uh, in hiding that complexity. That's why the American prefers to use the class, because when you use bundling, you have less complexity that will increase the readability of the code, and that will lead to lower maintenance costs for this code in future. Changing the code written using the class is way easier in comparison to um, understanding and changing the code written using a function. So, and that will lead to higher reusability of the code. Uh, Class can be used way easier by many front-end programmers. Let's do another exercise so that we are sure that you learned why we use class. Assume that we have a class called IOString. It has one attribute called str1, and it has a method called getString that gets an input from the user and store it in the attribute str1. It also has another method called printString that will print whatever whatever is stored in str1 attribute uh, in an upper case. So the question is that this code doesn't return any syntax error or runtime error, but it's not a good use of class. The class is not used for a good cause. What is wrong with this class? Here is the answer. First of all, this class has only one attribute. Note that a class is usually a combination of two or more related variables with the functions, the methods that regularly work on those variables. A class is a bundle of related variables, and related methods. In this case, you only have one attribute. Whenever you have only one attribute, it doesn't make sense most of the time to create a class. The second issue with this code is using input and print inside the class. Note that the class is going to be used by the front end programmers, not by users. So you as the backend programmer should not be in charge of having interactions with the user. The input function and the print function belong to the front end programmer. So instead of getting input, you get an argument for the user for the method. So getString must have another parameter there, another argument there, and also rather than printing something, if you really need to have interaction with the front-end programmer, you either use the return function, or if there is an error, you need to throw an exception. We already learned about these to some extent inside the function, in the function lecture, in the lecture on the function. Let me provide a summary of what we have learned so far so that we are ready for the next video. First of all, we learned that a class is like a blueprint, and you can use that blueprint to create several instances of that blueprint, which are called objects. Here you see one example of a class called point in a UML unified modeling language, a visual language. This class has two attributes, X and Y, and it has four methods dunder init, which initializes this class, create an instances of this class, and set X and Y, the attributes. It also has three other methods, distance from origin, which return the distance from the coordinates 0 and 0. It also has two special methods, $str and $add, which you can see how they are implemented in this class on the right side. Let me quickly go over the appendix. First of all, you may bump into the following error message. Method name takes zero positional argument, but one was given. This happens usually when you miss adding self as an argument to the method. So keep that in mind. You always need to add self as an argument to the method of a class. If you're interested to know more about special attribute and special methods, you can learn them here using this link. There are some other special methods here, in case you need them, you can use the name. If you have any questions, please ask them during the interactive lecture class. In the next video, I will introduce you to encapsulation in object-oriented programming.